We're going to be comparing the cameras on the Galaxy S22 Plus versus the S23 Plus and see if it's worth upgrading. I'm heading into the city today, so we're going to see a bunch of samples in New York. Let's start this one a little bit different. Let's do Instagram first. And going through the pictures, they are very similar. You may see a little bit difference in the saturation of colors and color temperature, which is going to be consistently brought up throughout this video. I do want to mention about performance, which the Galaxy S23 Plus is the better, obviously upgraded processor, and it's slightly smoother and better, but it's not very noticeable as I'm taking pictures from daylight to low light. So Instagram pictures are great, but when I'm shooting video, you still get that like pixelation in the first few seconds of the video when you save them. But when you're watching it or sharing it straight to your Instagram stories, you don't see the pixelation, so that's one thing to keep in mind of. When you're zooming in and out very quickly, you do see a little bit of jump or lag, which is basically switching lenses to the wide to telephoto. So if you're planning to save your videos, I wouldn't recommend using the Instagram camera app. For photos, I'm going to show ultrawide moving to wide, telephoto on to 3x, then 10x, then 30x. Now going through them, a lot of it is going to be very similar. Sometimes you see a little bit of a color change where one will be more saturated than the other, and white balancing as well. So some are warmer, and sometimes the Galaxy, let's say the Galaxy S22 is cooler. One thing I do notice at the telephoto end, especially at 30x, the Galaxy S23 Plus is just slightly better. You can see a little bit more detail, but it's not going to be like dramatically different to the point where you're going to start using the 30x more often. And the camera setup is very similar, so you're not really missing out upgrading to this new phone unless you want specific things coming out of the S23 Plus. Like the new green color, the design change, the bigger battery, the I guess more storage now, you can get up to 512 gigs, and a new processor. And also the S23 Plus is much brighter, so I guess taking pictures outside or in daylight is a bit helpful in terms of the experience as well. So on the back end of things, for the experience, where if you are planning to use the camera a lot, you do want a longer battery life and more storage, then I guess that would make sense. But as for performance wise and just showing pictures to friends and family, or even posting it to social media, it's not going to be a life-changing or big improvement. Moving on to low light, I mentioned earlier that it's slightly snappier than S22 Plus because of the new processor, but again, not going to be like a huge improvement in terms of just the everyday life. In the beginning, I mentioned that I do notice an improvement in the telephoto end, and that really applies in low light where you can see a bigger difference, but it's all the way up to like the 30x or like the 10 to 30x range, where I don't think a lot of people would be around in this range. So I think commonly it would be between the 2x to 5x, which in that area, I don't think you'll see a huge difference between the two. If you are the type of person that would zoom in a lot between the 10x to 30x range, then yeah, you will see an improvement from last year's model. For selfies, there is a new 12 megapixel camera for the S23 line, and I don't really see a big difference between the two, but that's up to you to decide. For portrait mode, I'm leaning towards the S23 in terms of the exposure and colors, where I feel like my skin is more towards what is realistic and less red. And for HDR, I can see more of my face, or it's more exposed more consistently than S22. As you can tell, you can shoot in 1x and 3x, and you will most likely notice in the 3x range, I am not in focus for most of the time. I'm doing it on a timer and going to my spot. So I would recommend having someone to help you shoot so you can, or so they can tap your face and let it be in focus. Now moving on to video, in the ultra wide, I noticed that the shadows are more like a greenish hue on the S22, whereas on the Galaxy, it's more on the realistic side, it's more grayish and a little bit blue. But besides the greenish hue, the coloring and the quality does look very similar. And everything is the same with the regular wide camera. I would say that the S22 Plus can show a bit more in the shadows just from this clip alone, but I'm not sure if it's like always a consistent thing. And these HDR kind of shots, it seems like in this clip the S23 Plus is more hazy in terms of like the jacket and the plant on the right side. And then if you switch onto the wide camera lens, it kind of just did a switch. where the S22 Plus seems to have more of the brighter grayish look, and the S23 just have the more darker and harsher look. And I want to show this clip just because when I'm panning, I noticed that the S23 Plus did lag a bit, and I did see it from time to time as I was recording, but I wasn't sure if it's going to go through in the video recording, but I guess it did. Hopefully that can be fixed with a future firmware update. So let me know your thoughts between these two phones and if it's worth upgrading to the new phone. Of course, if you have like a Galaxy S20 or like even older generation phones, then sure, the new S23 line is a great update. If you want to see more comparisons, make sure to stay here, and I will do more of that with the S23 Plus. And I do have some with S23 Ultra versus other phones already, so head on over to my channel and check them out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.